Hi there. I think I'm live on Facebook for my first time. This is Jenna Lynn Roberts from Present Path Tarot, and I am making a video today about the Hermit card. Joe was supposed to join me. He might come in later, but he just got a last minute important phone call, so we're just gonna go with that. Um, so I want to talk about the Hermit card today because we're all hermiting at home, and I have my key lantern with me to present the light of the world that we are bringing out through this process of integrating our lives into a quiet space at home. So, what's the Hermit card all about? It's about, it's funny because many of us are afraid to be alone. We don't like being alone. And so the loneliness of that card can be intimidating, but we have the standard archetype of the guy who you go out in the forest and um, he's in this house on the edge of some land, and our travelers come through and meet him. But what I see him as is he is a person between the liminal space that the hero on that quest is about to go into. I feel like he's a gatekeeper between the underworld and the overworld in the hero's journey. So, it's about introspection, and it's about knowing your full integrated self of your spiritual wholeness in that which you're familiar with, that which is your above surface information about you, and that which is the underside, that which is the secret of you. And the unknown gifts and powers you hold that you don't even know you have yet, because it's before the hero goes on his quest, he comes to the hermit. And the hermit teaches you about how to be fully present with yourself and honest with yourself. So I want to share some cards that present that. So here's the classic card of the hermit, and he has his staff and his lantern and his cape, and he's in the snow. So those are the key details of this particular card. And the lantern, to me, represents the wisdom that he holds. And so he sits and he reads a bunch of books, like Alejandro Jodorowsky from Holy Mountain wrote a book about tarot with Marianne Costa, and he put the hermit on the cover of it because it's the spiritual teacher in the cards. So the hermit also is our internal spiritual teacher, our own internal guru. And so the hermit reads a lot of books. And when he reads those books, he can then take that learning, that light that he has built the fire of through books, and take it out into the world and share it with the world, but also present it against reality. So a lot of the Hindu practices and Buddhist practices will say, we're going to tell you what to expect from meditating, but only you can know fully that wisdom is real once you practice and experience it and take it out in the world and reflect it against what's real. So I think that's a really important aspect of the Hermit card, is that you are learning things in a book and then you're taking them out into the world and saying, is this true? So it's a very realistic point of view. You're not just saying I have blind faith. You're really honoring that. And so a lot of us right now, we're hermiting inside our homes. We're sheltered in place, and we're taking care of ourselves in the house. And then what do we do with ourselves? So I would say that the Hermit card would be asking us, each of us individually, to be doing some level of spiritual work while we're inside. Reading some spiritual books, doing some meditation, maybe some yoga, qigong, maybe just taking care of the things that are important to you, doing your art, doing the things that you have a spiritual urge to do that you normally don't have the time to do, especially the things that require a spiritual urge that you're really taking care of yourself with, that you're, yeah, it's a lot about self-care in this card too. So spiritual urge that you can do alone and that is also loving, you know? This isn't the flogging the back character. Here's some other examples. Here's another very classic example from the Silver Witch Tarot. And so here he again has his, it's just he's up on a pedestal and he has his cape, his beard, and his staff. And here he has the symbol of the caduceus of the snakes wrapped around the staff and the light as well. So here he has a medicinal quality to him to consider. You know, what kind of medicine and mana do you need to feed yourself right now? How can you really care for yourself right now? I love this one. This is from the Universal Fantasy Tarot, and it's very colorful, and his wand is lit on fire. And so the lantern is actually the staff on fire. And notice again that the hermit's looking out into the world. So we're all sitting at home, being alone, but we're also bringing that out into the world somehow. We're reflecting out into the bigger picture of what's happening. And again, it's, you know, his physical place is a castle or house that's out on the edge somewhere. I was really hoping Joe could join for this because he loves the Hermetic history. And so when he comes in, we'll just let him talk about that. And then here's a fun little quaint hermit. This guy also has the snake wrapped around, the medicinal snake. And his has a crystal on his wand to capture the light of the lantern. So again, light is key to this. And he also has some sort of odd little strange thing coming down from the sky. I don't know what that thing is. Feel free to write in comments if you have any ideas. And he also has a three-headed wolf, which I don't know the symbolism of. But if you look very close in here, way in the back, there's a city in the background. And the moon. So it's that kind of, you know, being away from everything is a very spiritually empowering thing we can do. It's a very valuable thing to be able to pull yourself out of the din of noise and go into a quiet place within. And then this Hermit card is from the new deck with a fun, the Playful Heart Tarot by Kitten Chops, who I met, and she wears kitten ears all the time, so she's pretty awesome. And my friend Tricky Bunny gave me this, and this one, this is the only one where they're not fully alone. I guess we did have the three-headed dog, but this character has a fox with him. And he's looking at a lantern made of a skull. So in this one, we can see the lantern is this symbol of death as well, and the lantern's also coming off of his hat. So he's got a good little hat going on. And he's barefoot as well, and out in the trees. So, and the last one I want to show you is one that, to me, I love the Deviant Moon Tarot deck, but this one is like, a little bit too on the dark side. This is not how I see the Hermit card. Granted, they have the industrial city behind them and the moon, and they have this like fish with a skull beneath them that's clearly some food they ate. But this is, to me, the opposite of the Hermit card. This is loneliness without the spiritual bandwidth that the Hermit card has. So, that's just some examples of the card. And Alejandro Jodorowsky is, has anyone, I don't know if you've ever seen the wonderful film Holy Mountain, but he loves Holy Mountain. And for some reason, where's this card? I had it just a moment ago. And he sees it as crisis, passage, and wisdom. So crisis, I mean, in a way, when do most humans choose to isolate themselves like we are right now? I think mostly it's going to be happening because of crisis of some kind. but it's also passage. And so in the hero's journey, if you look at the major arcana, the fool goes on their journey. They have the high priestess who gives them, they have the magician and the high priestess who give them the wisdom to go forward on their journey, some secret talismans. And they have their mother and their father who have given them their base wisdom. And the hierophant, which is their society, that's given their base concept of what's real and normal. And then the lover's card, which is the people and that around them, either their own passion or the people they love around them, especially partnerships. And then the chariot, which takes them away from the village. And strength, where they have usually their first test of strength in the overworld, that they can see, I am capable of this journey. And they usually are able to overcome that feat. And then they meet the hermit. And then they have the Wheel of Fortune, and they're getting into the Hanged Man, and they're 12. So Justice and the Hanged Man, that's the beginning. The Hanged Man, hey Jen, the Hanged Man is where they begin to go into the underworld. And so the Hermit is the beginning of that kind of limbo, where they're between two worlds. They have left their overworld, they've proven themselves through the Strength card, and now, or in some decks, that's the Justice card, which works for me too, that they have realized they have a purpose beyond themselves. And then they meet the Hermit. And so this Hermit is representative of the internal wisdom that we go into. That we're going right now by choosing to all hermit away, which I'm proud of every one of you for doing. I know it's not an easy choice. So all of us are choosing to hermit away right now. And then the next choice is, what do you do with that time? How do you value your lone time wisely? And I think in a big way, the Hermit card is asking us to read some books, to meditate, and to get some perspective on the bigger picture, to get out of our own individual selves, to look at the bigger picture, to see both our normal and now our very not normal all at the same time without knowing what the not normal is going to be. The hero on their quest, they don't know what they're about to go into any more than we do. They don't know. They're just in this place of, I've chosen to go on this adventure that I've accepted this role in. You've accepted the role of staying at home at this point. And we know that there's something ahead of us that's the underside that we don't understand yet. But remember that there's always the world card at all of this, so at the end of this we get to have a grand new beginning that is also an ending. And we're about to step into that. So, so the key words for what Alejandro Jodorowsky feels are the key words for the Hermit are solitude, wisdom, letting go. So there's a surrendering here that's also presented in the Hanged Man card. Therapy, crisis, experience, poverty. Poverty, like a lot of us are experiencing that, if that isn't smacking true for many of us right now. Shedding light. So that's what this lantern is about, right? Is that you're bringing light to things. And that can be either bringing positivity, but that can also be bringing like reality and wisdom to things. As an aesthetic, like a monk, like an ascetic monk. Very old age. So I feel like the old age to me of the monk represents the wisdom. That this hermit has been alone enough to be comfortable alone, and there's a wholeness in that. And there's a great wisdom that comes from being able to watch the world objectively. I think that's another characteristic of this card, is the objective of it, that you're away from the world, looking into it with your light, and bringing your light to the world as well. Walking backward, I don't know how that one plays, but you know, don't have to agree with everything a book says. Cold, receptive, ancient silence. So yeah, there's a real quiet to this card. And one of the things that that he also adds is that he has This is what Jodorowsky likes to add in his things. Hi, Ada. So Jodorowsky says, and if the hermit spoke, I have arrived at the end of my path, there where the unthinkable presents itself like an abyss. Faced by this nothingness, I can no longer move forward. Can you relate to this? Come on. All I can do is retreat, while contemplating the road I have already traveled. With every step I take backward, I form a reality before me. Between life and death in a continual crisis, I hold up my lit lamp, my consciousness. It serves me well, of course, to guide the steps of those following me upon the path I have opened, but it also shines to draw attention to myself. I have performed the spiritual labor I had to do. Now, O infinite wisdom, mysterious, come to my aid. Little by little I have freed myself of all bonds. I no longer belong to my thoughts. My words do not define me. I have vanquished my passions. Detached from desire, I dwell with my heart as if inside a hollow tree. My body is a vehicle that I witness as it ages, passes, and vanishes like the irresistible course of a river. I no longer know who I am. I live in total ignorance of myself. To reach the light, I bury myself in darkness. To attain ecstasy, I cultivate indifference. To achieve the love of all things and all beings, I have retired into solitude. It is there, in the remotest nook of the universe, that I open my soul like a flower of pure light. Gratitude without demand, the essence of my knowledge, is the knowledge of essence. So, and Jennifer Brooks says, walking backwards like maybe looking out for oneself. That's an interesting thing. It's a protectionist thing, I could see, of kind of like, yeah, you're like slowly easing back to kind of like reassess the situation to get a view of what's happening. And I think Joe is coming back in. Do you want to join, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay, so Joe here knows a lot about the Hermit, and I just did a big overview and read some Jodorowsky. So this is a great book, by the way, if you're learning Tarot. The Spiritual Teacher in the Cards by Alejandro Jodorowsky. You should see Holy Mountain, and then you should learn about the Spiritual Teacher in the Cards. So Joe here, tell me all about, you're so interested in Hermetic belief, and if you want to talk about it, that'd be great.
Thank you, Jenna. I'm excited to talk
Joe
about that.
from
Yes.
Mana Medicine and
the Luminous
Lion. He's the Luminous Lion. He's a Leo, you know. And
I
Jen
am a
says
Leo.
hi, Joe.
I am a Leo. Hi, Jen. Yay. So this is a very exciting conversation. I feel it's like very much dialed into the present moment. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah.
Sounds like you gave kind of a primer on the card itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stuff we've talked about before. Just, that it's about wisdom, it's about light, meditation, and it's about pulling away from the world to get an objective point of view, kind of. But then also bringing your light of wisdom back into the world to both reflect on your book knowledge and whether that's real, and also to reflect on your to bring your own wisdom to others as well.
That's powerful.
So we got the lantern.
We got the lantern.
But it's also about accepting that there's a darkness to it all. Like, that this kind of situation is a crisis. And I also see that we have to, in that book he kind of says crisis related to the Hermit card, because really when do you go internal on the level of the Hermit card, but when there's a crisis? That's typically when life pushes you into it. Most people don't choose to do that until there's a real strong reason.
There was a lot that I really connected with and resonated with, and what you just mentioned. That this is a time where new insight is received. Mm-hmm. Is specifically a hermit goes away from the noise of the world, mm-hmm. And then receives. And as you mentioned, this is all in service of humanity, then brings back what's been received to the external world. And so we think about the internal corresponding with the external, one being like the other. Mm-hmm. So it's also the 9th card in the Major Arcana. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the number 9 is very much representative or symbolic of in service of the greater good or in service of humanity.
Hmm.
So the aspect that you mentioned of receiving or you know receiving insight but in service of the world so you can take it back out. Couple wonderful things about this card. It's one of my very favorites.
Yeah.
Um, is that it is? Do we have the right away? Um, so the classic depiction of the hermit shows an old white bearded man carrying a lantern with a six-rayed star emanating within, holding a staff. And so there's a lot of symbology in here.
Yeah, I didn't know what I know about the lantern. I didn't realize it's a six-pointed
Yeah.
star. What do you take from the six-pointed star?
So the six-pointed star, what's also known as the Star of David, is a combination of two triangles, one right side up and one upside down, superimposed over one another.
It's like
Now,
as above, so below.
that, yes, is definitely represented in that, absolutely. And what's also represented in the six-rayed star is the coagulation or the bringing together, the conjunction, actually is a better word, of the four elements. So when we think about the signs for the elements, we think of fire as an upright triangle, and then going across, you'll see an upright triangle with a line through the top, a
For
upside down earth,
Or for down, yeah.
upside down triangle with a line, and a pure upside down triangle. Those are the four symbols representing earth, air, water, and fire. So when you look at the star, all four of those symbols are expressed within a six-rayed star. You'll see that there's the upright triangle, and there's also the upright triangle with the line where the other triangle is
Crossing it.
So
Oh, interesting.
when we think about the minor arcana, we see that everything has been suited. All of the elements are separated. And as we move into the major arcana, this is the coming together of those four elemental categories.
Yeah.
So he's being illuminated by all of the work and learnings, insights, and lessons that were present on the journey through the minor arcana.
Yeah.
So he has the 4 plus what is referred to as the quintessence, or the fifth essence, or the fifth element, which is the conjunction of the 4. So that's the star that's illuminating the lantern.
Yeah, and what do you make of the staff? I don't really know much about this. If you want to share about that.
Sure, yeah, sure. And just one thing more I wanted to say about the lantern is that it's also a lantern is only going to illuminate your next step.
That's good. This is why I needed to have this Joe here for this. Yeah.
Very cool, right?
Yeah,
So,
and that's the thing, is that I was thinking about how this also reminds me of Plato's story of the cave. That you have one person who steps out away from society to see the light and then come back and tell people about the light. And also in there, though, I feel like the hermit is also almost about going out of the light of the playground and into the darkness of a cave. So it's like a flip of that myth to carry the light of the cave outside, in a sense, to see the light that's within the cave that you can only see when you let yourself stay long enough and quiet enough that your eyes can take in the darkness of the cave and your eyes become adjusted to see the light of the cave. And only then can you really fully tell everyone the cave has light too.
Right.
And so I love that idea that you only can see one step ahead, because that's the thing about the hermit, is they're being objective about the world, but it's also the liminal. So in my taking of how the major arcana reflects the hero's journey,
Love
the
it.
hermit is holding the space in the liminal space between the above world and the below world.
Right, or the conscious and the unconscious.
Yes, and so they're aware, they're capable of seeing wholeness with acceptance, but you have to be willing to look at your full scenario of yourself. And it's also that place of we don't know where we're going next right now. We don't know what the new norm will become.
Totally.
And we are in a space of the hermit card of being on the edge of that knowledge.
Oh, very much. Right. Like nobody knows what's outside of the illumination of the lantern right now. Our reality has been
Mm-hmm.
constricted in this way that is it can be really beautiful. Silence can be really beautiful. Space can be really beautiful. And what do we find in space and in silence is we become more in tune with our inner being and our inner voice, our inner self. And that's exactly right. And in service of the greater good, because when you find that light, you bring it back. Like, I'm a fan of the Burning Man festival, where a lot of people go out in the desert and they experience this explosion of creativity, and the whole idea is, okay, now you go take it back.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the whole idea. And I've watched a lot of arts and culture flourish just from that. You go out to the edge and you learn something and you bring it back.
Right.
And
Right.
so in this, that's a case of going somewhere that's external.
Mm-hmm.
But with the hermit, this is this is
It's your
all
internal Burning Man.
totally right. You become connected, and that specifically also connects with the central archetype, or at least the defining archetype of this card, which is so the hermit is a disciple of Hermes,
Mm-hmm.
and Hermes is a god that's been represented throughout many cultures and is has been present in humanity as far back as records go. So in ancient Egypt, the presence that we call Hermes was represented by a ibis-headed
Oh,
god.
that's why you
Here
wanted
we
my.
go. No, here we go. That looked. Hold on, something like this.
I made this mask for a hummingbird outfit, but we're making an ibis today.
Am I
There's
okay?
Joe's impersonation of the ibis. That's amazing.
So, as the ibis-headed god, he was known as
Cool.
Thoth.
Now I know I can use this for a different outfit.
Yeah, he was
That's
known
great.
as for sure. You could put that into a Thoth or Tehuti. Was the other name that this particular messenger god was known as, and Hermes or Hermes Thoth or
Oh, like the Toth. The
Thoth, right?
Toth. Okay.
Yes, that was the Egyptian god depicted in so many hieroglyphs with the ibis head, and usually a scribe or some writing instrument. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that guy.
That guy.
That's the guy that you can connect with during these times of extra space and silence. So this god is just an archetype that represents the creative messenger, the connection between the above and the below. Hermes in the Greek pantheon had winged sandals, and he would use his sandals to fly up and gather higher level information and then bring it back to us mere human beings. It was a very similar story with Thoth. He also is credited with delivering the gift of written language to humanity. So the idea being when we have the space and when we have the silence, like the hermit alone on his journeys away from the normal hustle bustle of culture and society, we have the opportunity through deep meditation to connect with that archetypal presence that is Hermes or Thoth
Mm-hmm.
or Tehuti.
And tell me, you were telling me about the hermetic monks. Was that you were telling something about another historical aspect of it once? Um, what the hermetic monks are about? Maybe around alchemy or something.
Yeah, this is also the god of alchemy. Hermes is, and that's a great point. And alchemy, which has been sort of mishanded down as being related to attempts to turn lead, base metal, into gold.
Mm-hmm.
And through medieval times and such, that's what was known about. But alchemy is a rich symbol set, and of transformation. It's all about transformation. And so as we step into our cocoons for this indefinite period of time where we are only illuminated to what's right in front of us,
Mm-hmm.
our next step, it's sort of like a deep sense of presence. If we can detach from anxiety or depression or anything like that, or uh, integrate or learn from anxiety and depression right now, we can find a place of deep presence where there's no uh, extra frenetic energy in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
And in those spaces, through meditation, we can contact to our inner being, our higher self.
Mm-hmm.
And that messenger is Hermes, which would make us hermits because we are disciples of Hermes in that case.
Oh.
We're going to learn from that voice that connects us to the
Love
above.
it.
Right. It's cool
Yeah,
stuff.
that's so interesting.
And that's going to be powerful on our collective and personal journeys of transformation
Yeah.
right now. It's very alchemical.
Yeah, so we're going through our own inner alchemical experience of turning that which has, I'd say, become lead, because I believe we're kind of born gold, that which in our lives has become a heavy, dull, unrich aspect of our lives, to see how we can, in this quiet period, transform that into spiritual gold again.
Right. Nailed it. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And we all start as human beings. We just by definition start uh, with some lead to work with,
Yeah.
because there's no such thing as a perfect human being.
Yeah.
That
Past life,
that types
whatever. Yeah.
right, definitely, yeah, for sure. And
Yeah, the challenges we're born into inherently in our own lineage or in our family or in our body and our health and our DNA.
without a doubt, and our
Mm-hmm.
situations and our culture,
Mm-hmm.
what it imposes on us that makes us reflect back on ourselves in ways that aren't useful and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? All of that stuff is dross. It's meant to be worked with. It's meant to be
Right.
stripped away to reveal our inner essence.
Yeah.
And there's been stories like they say that the people who finished this great work have been very few in numbers, that have actually gone through successive transformations over many lives enough to get to a place.
Yeah.
We know them like by really really huge names like Jesus or Buddha.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I've crossed. Do you think you've ever met someone who you feel was truly capturing enlightened being on? I believe I've been in the presence of enlightenment. And I think there's also a sort of like different flavor of hermetic enlightenment. Instead of, like, for instance, in yoga, they have jnana yoga, which is intellect. You have raja yoga, which is body.
Right.
You have karma yoga, which is service.
Right.
Bhakti yoga, which is heart. So I'd say, like, Amma, I think, is one of the people I've been around who I'm like, I think this woman's enlightened,
Right.
And she lives simply, and she gives all her blessings and money away.
Yeah.
She's like bhakti, enlightenment of the heart.
Yeah.
And to me, I feel like the hermit is probably more of a jnana, meditative, intellectual enlightenment, more of a mental quiet that you've achieved, that you've pulled into,
Right.
So I think there's different flavors of enlightenment, and I think that he's like the more almost traditional enlightened being in that way.
Right.
Of like they've mentally grasped their mind.
Well, yeah, and taking it back to the staff he carries, which is a wand, and
right, of course.
and so in this case, he's as far as one elemental presence being reflected in this card more than the others. We have them all combined in the six-rayed star and the quintessence, but he's also carrying a staff. And staff is fire, and
And in some of the decks, it's presented as a torch.
Right, it's fire, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right. And there's your spiritual fire, and you're looking for your. So this is work that is done.
Yeah, this universal fantasy tarot has it presented as a torch. It's really it's really pluming too.
Yeah.
It's really going.
Fire is very much apparent.
Which I see as almost like in this, because there's no lantern in this card, I see this also as like part of the light of the lantern is being reflected in the staff torch.
Very much.
So
great interpretation.
Yeah. So yeah, staff is fire.
Right.
In the wands.
Right.
But it's also the magic wand.
Right.
And that kind of Gandalf wizard thing.
Yep.
And it's also to me protection, that he's wise and he's alone. I mean, he's totally alone.
Right.
But he's got something representing protection. You
Right.
know, I feel like he could whip out some Jackie Chan moves if anyone were to try and come into his sweet little cabin without permission.
A master. Yeah, this dude's a master in many ways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that kind of like, you have to have some level of protection when you're alone in that level. You don't just, it's almost like you don't take your vulnerability out to people who are gonna squelch it and ruin it.
Ooh, that was really insightful. Totally tap in with that.
Yeah.
Right. You have to be alone until you can master it in a place, because the truths and understandings that are passed down, through Hermes, are not necessarily, not everyone's ready for them. In fact, they're higher level understandings. This is kind of a transformative card in the journey of the major arcana, because this is sort of where the light is shown, where the veil is temporarily pulled back.
Right, yeah.
And if you are to provide that glimpse past the veil to someone not ready, they could easily lose touch with reality and three-dimensional material world.
I've met some people who felt like their kundalini was risen or opened too early, and it really made them a little crazy.
Absolutely. No, I mean,
it took a lot to heal it. It's like people want to get the high of the enlightenment, but they don't want to do the work to get there, and that's a terrible combination. I feel like the hermit is down for the work.
Right. Very much, yeah.
Hermit's like, I am not trying to short shrift this bargain. I am trying
That's another great insight.
I am going to sit and do my work and be okay being alone.
It's acceptance like that, pure acceptance. And again, just reflecting on our times right now, the ability to accept the changes and the magnitude of the changes that are upon us and that are here and real, and that 6 weeks ago, we could have never sat down and they said, write the craziest disaster novel ever, right?
Yeah.
Write us a future 6 weeks from now that's going to look really different. Like, I don't think any of us would have gone this far.
Yeah. Well,
maybe a meteor
and the funny
strike.
thing is, one thing that I'm very, I don't know if this might relate to Hermit or not, but that all the movies being presented, this definitely relates to our power of mythology. That all the movies in the last few, since 2012, every friggin' movie has been about the end of the world.
Right.
It used to be that just the microfiche,
right.
There was some sort of drive in the movie that was really minor and that was very accessible.
And
now every single movie has been about the end of the world, and now we're getting the first little flickers of that. And to me, this is a flicker. I mean, this is a flicker.
We're all going.
It's a worldwide flicker, but it's a flicker. And the idea that I'm really kind of feel like that collective unconscious focusing on the Armageddon, I feel like the Hermit understands the power of your thoughts to transform into reality.
Ooh,
and I feel like that's part of the lantern light, is what thoughts are you shining out into the world? Not to judge you for having your cave dark thoughts about your fears and anxieties, but what thoughts are you actually reflecting into the world? We're roommates, that's why we're allowed to be within 6 feet of each other right now. And I'm really grateful that you reflect, positive thoughts to me, and I try to reflect positive thoughts to you, and then we check in with each other before we drop bombs on each other of hey, I'm having a hard day. We usually try and do a check-in.
Yep.
Usually
works, right?
Not every time, but we try to be hey, I got some poop light I gotta share. I got some really dark.
You got 5 minutes for me just to bitch about everything that's going on.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, you'll be like, right now. It's all right, I'll go find someone else to.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
So I think that's important too, is to honor that kind of, what are we bringing forth in the world as a collective mind, and how can we each individually shift that collective mind with our own empowerment of spiritual development of the mind and listening to our own thoughts.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Aida, hi Aida. Just saw that. Hey, it's so good. And something that you also tuned into there is the power of thought and how it connects back to this particular card. And it's totally right. You know, this the power of thought, and in the Hermetic tradition, the power of thought is what drives the creation of the material world. So thought in this material is in this case a lower emanation of thought. And again, like Hermes in the ancient Egyptian tradition was known as Thoth. And Thoth and thought are very, very closely related words, and that's not necessarily
really?
a meaningless coincidence.
Huh.
Yeah, very much so, because it was he represented the power of thought, of higher level thought, and its creative power. And then even more so, or more to your point, the power of expressed thought through word, which ties back to most of the traditions, the entirety of the Judeo-Christian tradition, which includes Islam. The universe is created by an utterance of God. In that tradition, God spoke a word that set all of this into being. It was our existence was literally spoken into being in that tradition. They call it the Tetragrammaton. It's 4 Hebrew letters, Yod, He, Va, He, and that's then gone on to be interpreted or reinterpreted into Jehovah. But again, it's the creative power of words. So I think that's super insightful. Super insightful what you're mentioning. We do have a lot of power right now, more so than in my lifetime, to speak our reality into existence, to think it, to dream it, and to speak it into being.
Yeah. And to state our staff of healthy boundaries with what we need to insist upon and in our own selves, for ourselves.
Always.
Yeah, because a lot of this has been about boundaries too in that way, and I think that staff can represent having healthy boundaries as well.
Yeah, and the fact that he's alone.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, he or she.
Yeah, I have a deck that presents her. I have 2 decks that present the Hermit as a woman that I didn't bring out, that I regret. I thought I grabbed one of them, but I didn't.
Yeah,
but,
no, for
what
sure.
I like is that the Hermit, you know, I mean, yes, it's a him because he has a beard, but to me, it's
representation.
Yeah, in the classic representation, and when we think of a hermit, like, you know, I think of Frankenstein. Remember in Frankenstein, he goes out to the.
Oh yeah, the guy shows him fire.
The guy shows him fire.
Oh,
yeah, and
how about that?
And he's gentle, and he shows him gentleness.
Right.
He shows him that he's completely different than the rest of the world.
Right.
And to me, that's what I think of when I think of the Hermit card, is that character who, and I like that idea of you can even go out and visit and bring your ugliness, bring your Frankenstein to a true hermit, and they will reflect back to you light, they'll give you fire, and they'll give you a sense that the world doesn't have to be like it is.
Oh, so great.
And I love that. Mary Shelley, piece of women power, Mary Shelley.
So great. So great.
Whose mother was Mary Wollstonecraft, the feminist, by the way. Side note.
No, so, that's wonderful. I love this. This is a great discussion.
And so when you think of the actual, I think gender for me with the tarot, yeah, play with it. Somebody was saying to me yesterday, it's funny to me that the king is above the queen when you lay them out in the spread, or, you know, in order. And I'm like, well, some decks don't do that, but more importantly is, does being further up in the deck truly insert higher value?
Right, I don't think it does.
I don't think it does. And the Fool is, you know, the first.
That's the most important
actually
card.
The most important card. So
yeah,
I mean, and the idea everything. That it's just a balancing of things. It's the yin and the yang of things. And I think that the hermit being a male figure traditionally, it's just that that's the mythos we're familiar with.
Yeah, we've had it drilled into our head, this patriarchal
but, I mean,
form of being, but that's
I think
represented there. Right?
I think the movies probably have had hermetic females in movies, and it probably didn't throw you off because it doesn't have such a strong masculine flavor to the character anyway.
Right.
You know, the character itself is almost gender neutral in just being. They're definitely, it's an asexual character in a way.
Yeah, no, well, they're all, and this is again in the Hermetic tradition, God in the Hermetic tradition, God, which of course is all of us are, and is hermaphroditic and sharing characters of equally of
Oh,
both genders.
hermaphrodite.
Right.
Is that related to Hermes?
You know, it
Herm.
yeah, no, there is definitely a correlation between the
Ah,
two for
I have to
sure.
Google that after
Right.
this. Now I gotta go. I got something to go Google.
Right. Again, in the Hermetic tradition, like God is a hermaphrodite, and so yeah, there's some juice there.
Yeah,
You should do a little research and follow up with the fine people.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's an interesting one to go follow through. So
so
anyway,
good.
I think that
Yep.
was a fun conversation.
Super
Thank you.
good.
I'm so
Yeah.
glad you
Thank
came
you,
in at the
Jan.
perfect time too, because I just had kind of gone over a really basic overview of what the Hermit card is. So I appreciate I love your insights on this. I'm always enjoy listening to you talk about the Hermit because you've done a lot more study about this particular card than I have. So appreciate your insights. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Jenna. This was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. Yes, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And everything is divine, even when it feels so scattered and meaningless or difficult. We're all sharing a divine experience, and so strength
Yeah.
to you.
Thank you.
It's an honor to share these transformative times with you so closely, where we can have tea. And I'll just share that I'm drinking out of the cup that's got the kitty cat that's in space,
Kitten
and
hamburger cup.
he's after a cheeseburger in outer space. There, yeah. Look at that guy. Look at it. Like I'm totally in space.
I got
What
that
the-
at a white elephant
What
party.
am I gonna do here? But I'm definitely getting that cheeseburger. Okay, yes, and just to mention, you've consulted the tarot for me before,
Yeah.
through Transformative Times,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to put it out there that like Jenna has a profound relationship with this particular oracle, and
I love it.
my experience every time that you offer me the pleasure of that service has been insightful and profound, and so yeah,
Thank you, Joe.
without a
Means a
doubt.
lot to me.
Yeah.
Thank you. And also, I have been getting business consulting from Joe to build my tarot business, and he is an amazing small. I mean, maybe do big business too, but I'm small business consultant. So if you also, and that's through Lion,
Luminous Lion Consulting. Yeah.
Luminous Lion Consulting.
Yeah, you
And
can
I'm
always
Present
reach
Path
me,
Tarot.
right?
So
Yes.
Luminous Lion Consulting, Present Path Tarot. You could come over here after this is all over and get yourself. Oh well, you're gonna move.
Yeah,
Dang.
but I'm
But
around.
He'll be around. You can get yourself some business consultant and a tarot reading all in one day.
One-stop shop.
One-stop shop.
Thank you, Jenna. This has been fun.
Yeah. So thank you all for joining us. Thanks, guys. It's lovely to see you all. And get your hermit on right.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Perfect.